Thanks, guys. The Giants have arguably the best broadcasting team in Major League Baseball. CSR had the exclusive one-on-one interview with probably our biggest guest ever, Dave Flemming.
I think you're probably right. Biggest guest all time in this show's history. Anyway, you're welcome. Glad to be here.
Thanks a lot. Tell me, how does the typical day go for a baseball broadcaster?
Well, I do a lot of my preparation work for a game at home. So a lot of my day, aside from taking care of my 16-month-old twins, which takes up a lot of my time before I get to the park, but I try to devote at least an hour, maybe a couple hours. The computer has changed everything for baseball broadcasters. In fact, I don't even really know how they did it before. We had online newspapers and websites devoted to baseball and whatnot, but I try to give a couple hours every day to read the Bay Area papers. Say, for instance, we're playing the Philadelphia Phillies. I'll go online and read the Philadelphia Inquirer and try to see what's going on back on the East Coast. I've got a couple other sites that I like to visit every day just to check in and see how things are going. So I do a lot of reading before I come to the park. Then I typically will get to the park, say, 3 hours before game time, 4 o'clock if it's a 7 o'clock game. Go down in the clubhouse, talk to the players, check in with the managers, anything new today, is everybody feeling okay? Just some basic info, see if there was a interesting play from last night's game. Maybe I have a question for one of the guys. When that happened last night, what were you thinking about? Something like that. Watch batting practice for a few minutes, then I come back up here. And, really for broadcasters, it's a lot like players. Baseball is a game of routine. So once I get upstairs, it's sort of follow the same routine. Get the scorebook ready, go have a meal, come back, start the pregame show, get my stats in order, and we become creatures of habit up here. But it's a pretty easygoing life until the game starts. Once the mic's on, it becomes a little more high intensity. But up until that point, really most of my day is spent just gathering up some info, something I might use.
And it's only May, and baseball is such a long season. How do you yourself stay fresh?
Well, I stay fresh just because I love doing it, and I love the games, and I love the everyday aspect of baseball. I think it's the strength of the game, actually. Some people think it's a weakness. I think it's the strength of the game. For a broadcaster, it keeps me sharp. It keeps me on point. The story unfolds as the season goes along, and you have a new little chapter every day. So, in other words, there's new stuff to talk about every single day as opposed to having a game, waiting a week, and playing another game. There's new stuff every day. I think that helps me. The main challenge with the daily aspect of baseball for a broadcaster is making sure I don't blow out my voice or get a cold or get enough sleep. I mean, I need to pay attention to those things more than anything. So I end up drinking a lot of hot tea. As a kid, I never thought I'd be doing this. And it wasn't that I didn't think it'd be a great life, but I don't know. I grew up in Washington, D.C. Washington's kind of a serious place. Where everybody aspires to run for office or work on Capitol Hill or go be a lawyer or something. So baseball almost seemed like, well, I don't know, nobody does that. That's kid stuff. Nobody would do. So it never even occurred to me to think about doing baseball until I got to college. And then I started doing some games on the campus radio station, KZSU, and I loved it. So it was at that point where I thought, I got to give this a try. But growing up as a kid, I was a huge baseball fan, huge sports fan in general. But it was almost like, this is too good to be true. I might as well not even consider that possibility.
You're, from what I read, the youngest active broadcaster in the major leagues. How hard was it for you to transition into such an established booth with the likes of John Miller, Dwayne Kuiper, and Mike Krukow?
Yeah, it was a little difficult, I'd say. There were two things, Brian. One was, it was an advantage for me because these guys are so good, John, Dwayne, and Mike, the everyday guys with the Giants. Not only are they so good, they're so popular here locally that there wasn't a lot of pressure on me to come in and change the broadcast or be the star. I could come in, do my innings, contribute to the other stuff, and call it a day. And it really let me kind of get my feet underneath me as a major league broadcaster, sort of let the fans get to know me gradually as opposed to trying to force feed some personality down everybody's throat. And I think that helped me. Now, on the flip side, there was pressure because I think when you turn on the mic next to John, next to Dwayne, you better sound good or you're going to sound bad. In other words, the comparison can be pretty stark if I wasn't up to speed. So I had to make sure I was doing a good job, but by the same token, I think it was the case that they took a lot of pressure off me by being as good as they are.
Is there anything that you work to improve on even at this stage of your career? Like, what do you think, if you even have a weakness, what would it be?
Oh, I think I'm always improving. I hope I'm always improving. It may not be consciously working on one specific thing, although there are always little things that I'm thinking about, whether somebody writes me a note and says, hey, you're saying this word way too often, knock it off. And sometimes I go, oh, that's BS. Sometimes I say, hey, you know what, maybe that person's right, maybe I should. So there are always little things, but in general, I think the more games I do, the more comfortable I become. And I'm pretty comfortable now, but I still think there's a comfort level that comes with seeing more and more baseball. And so there are always little things I'm working on.